Is this a great game or what? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kurkjian, I'm his son Jeff Kurkjian, and this is kind of our football Super Bowl special. Today's guest is Phil Nevin, who was a major leaguer, former major league manager, as well as a former college football player. So very fitting to have him as the guest. Dad, can't wait for him to join. Hey, how are you?
Great to see you, Jeff. Phil Nevin's one of my favorite people. You know, he was the Golden Spikes Award winner at Cal State Fullerton. So he was the best college baseball player in the country. He was a number one pick, and he was a really good player. And he managed the Angels for a couple of years. And he's made me laugh because he and Aaron Boone together, I've been out with them a few times, and they are just riotous. It's so good.
Being that this is our football, baseball special, we're still in the offseason. Pitchers and catchers haven't reported just yet. The Super Bowl is this Sunday, Dad. Before we dive into that and have some fun intersecting these two great sports, I have to ask you about something I saw on the internet that had your name on it.
Oh, no. What?
It wasn't a butt tweet, which you have done, and I know you butt tweeted somebody on Barstool Sports one time, and that was, we went into crisis mode. I became your kind of PR guy to make sure that we could make right. I'll never forget where I was when I heard about it.
No one has ever sent out a butt tweet before, and then I wrote a heartfelt apology for such a stupid thing, and I got like 10,000 likes. It was so bad. That's how bad I am at technology. Sorry.
Well, luckily, Dad, it wasn't any mistake that you made, and I feel bad because I kind of saw it in passing, and I didn't get a screenshot, but there was an ESPN radio show that was picking ESPN personalities that they would like to see attempt to tackle Derrick Henry.
Oh,
and you were the number one overall pick. You saw this?
Yeah, Alex Fuse from our PR department sent me something. Yeah, Michelle Smallman, she picked me overall number one, and I don't understand. I don't understand. She thought, I guess she likes me, but she thinks that it would be really funny if I attempted to tackle Derrick Henry. Jeff, I weigh 145 pounds. I have an artificial hip. I'm 68 years old. I couldn't tackle Patrick Henry. And what makes this so funny? She thinks I would laugh out loud, where I would be terrified. I would be shrieking in fear if I had to get in the way of Derrick Henry. Am I wrong about this?
I think we all would be shrieking in fear if we had to face Derrick Henry, for goodness sake. I mean, on our Instagram, at Great Game or What, we're nearing 10,000 followers, by the way. So if you haven't followed us yet, would love you to help us get there. And one of the biggest things was, if you had 10 possessions to run as a running back, how many yards would you gain? And it's funny how many people in the comments are actually being realistic, Dad, that most people would maybe die trying to tackle Derrick Henry. I don't care if you have pads on. That guy is no joke.
Jeff, he weighs 260 pounds. He runs like the wind. My only chance is Pop, your grandfather, taught at the University of Alabama. Derrick Henry played there. Maybe he would give me a break and not kill me because he knows I have a connection to the Crimson Tide. I wouldn't get in the way of him for $1 million, just like I wouldn't get in the box when someone's going to throw it near my head. Look, I know my limitations, and I'm not going near Derrick Henry, and it wouldn't be funny. I'm thrilled that I was the overall number one choice in this draft, but really,
I think just like Devin Hester and the Bear, Tim Kurkjian and Derrick Henry, we got to make these things happen. I just don't have the money to be hiring the Bear trainers or to get Derrick Henry on your side, but we'll figure it out. Let's go, Dad. The Super Bowl is this Sunday. Okay, now, people know, if you listen to the show, I live right outside Philadelphia, and this is where when we are together, recording the podcast up in Montco, PA. So I'm surrounded by Philadelphia Eagles fans, and obviously this is a rematch from 2 years ago in the Super Bowl. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on this Super Bowl.
Well, I like football, Jeff. I don't understand it anymore. Like I told you before, in the 60s, I knew every kicker on every team. Now I can't even name half the quarterbacks. And again, once they went to the bubble screen and the skinny post, whatever that means, I've kind of lost track of football. But I am mesmerized by Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs. And to me, he personifies what a great all round athlete can do in his best sport. He was a really good shortstop slash pitcher in high school. He was a great point guard. And so when you see him throw a pass sidearm, that's a shortstop throwing to the second baseman on the double play. When you see him throw a ball around his back, which I have, that's him playing basketball. When you see him make a left-handed pass, that's a point guard in basketball having to pass it once in a while with his left hand. And I just encourage every young kid to watch Patrick Mahomes play and recognize that his basketball and baseball background makes him the amazing quarterback that he is. That's my big takeaway. I can't wait to watch him play because I'm fascinated by how good he is and how he got that good.
So I'm going to put something up on our social media at Great Game or What to kind of get a poll of our listeners of who you want to win it all and who you would like to see if you have no horses in the race.
Right. I'm not rooting for anyone. Look, I should hate the Eagles because they beat the Commanders by like 100 points, but I'm not rooting. I just want to root for a great game. I root for the story, Jeff. I guess the Chiefs winning for the only team to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. I think that's the better story, but if the Eagles, end this streak, I think that would be pretty cool too. But Jeff,
You don't think the Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles from the rival New York Giants would be a better story? He's one of the best guys, not only on the field but off the field.
Right. And when they played the Commanders, I remember telling everyone who cared to listen, I'm really worried about Saquon Barkley. I don't think we can stop him because nobody can. Then, of course, the first time he touched the ball, he went 65 yards or whatever it was for a touchdown. That should have been an omen.
So, Dad, obviously we are a baseball podcast. Dad. So we could drone on and on about football, but there's so much that intersects between these two sports. Great baseball players who played football. I wouldn't be surprised, do you have a list of these athletes that you want to talk about?
Well, yes, I love to talk to every baseball player and say, what other sports did you play and how good were you? For instance, Bo Jackson is probably the best football player ever to play in the major leagues. And, Bo at his prime, I believe was the fastest and the strongest player in the major leagues at the same time. And I told you that Jimmy Stewart, former major league player who became a scout, was once asked to give a scouting report on Bo Jackson. And he said, when he was at Auburn, I saw him hit a ball 500 feet. He ran out and caught it before it hit the ground. And then he threw it back to home plate in the air. Now, obviously, that didn't happen, but that was his scouting report on Bo Jackson. If Bo Jackson had become a full-time baseball player, he would have been a Hall of Famer, but he never truly concentrated on it because he was too busy running people over on the football field. But George Brett, I told you, George Brett, his teammate, told me I never missed a Bo at bat. I never went and took a leak, as he told me, and missed a Bo at bat because there's a chance he might do something that I've never seen before. And Jeff, oh my gosh, him on the bases as a baseball player was terrifying. My dear friend Harold Reynolds, when Bo would get on first and Harold's playing second, Harold would yell over at Bo, Bo, this is not football. Meaning, don't come in and kill me at second base because Bo
run me over.
That big and that fast could really hurt somebody. And the other guy, of course, was Deion Sanders, who was a very good baseball player who would have been a great baseball player if he had ever put his mind to it. But he was too busy playing corner in the NFL, returning punts. He was an amazing football player. He was a good baseball player. And I told you once, but Jeff, Buck Showalter told me that Deion's the fastest player he's ever seen. And one spring, he put Deion in a rundown drill. and to give the Yankee infielders practice at doing the rundown drill. And Dion was so quick and so fast they couldn't tag him out. So Buck had to take Dion out of the drill to do it properly because he was too fast and too quick to throw out. How about that? And then there's Brian Jordan, who had a really good major league career for the Braves and the Cardinals. And I was always struck by him, Jeff. He's a really good football player, but he had trouble staying healthy in baseball. And I make this point all the time. It's really easy to get hurt playing baseball. And when you get hurt playing baseball, like the skill required to play the game, if you're hurt, you can't play. If you break your hand, you can't play in the big leagues. If you break a finger, you're not going to be able to hit. You can't pitch, whatever it is. And that's not to say that football players are the toughest guys in the world to me, but given the skill involved in baseball, I was always struck by the fact that Brian Jordan, really good football player, really good baseball player, had trouble staying healthy playing baseball. And Jeff, the other thing I love about baseball is talking to players who played quarterback, for instance, in high school or college. Like Joe Mauer, Hall of Famer, was an all-state quarterback in Minnesota, and he was going to Florida State to play football. Instead, he signed with the Twins to play professional baseball, and quickly thereafter played in the big leagues. Torrey Hunter watched Joe Mauer throw a football once and said, he looks exactly like an NFL quarterback. That's how great a throwing arm Joe Mauer had. And of course, Todd Helton, Hall of Famer, he played quarterback behind Peyton Manning at the University of Tennessee. And Jeff, you remember Adam Dunn, big hulking Adam Dunn. He was a great high school quarterback. He was on his way to play Division I quarterback in football, and he ended up signing to play baseball, which I always loved. Chris Davis, you remember Chris Davis of the Orioles, how big he was? He was
Absolutely.
he was a high school quarterback, and a good one. So when he pitched in that famous game in Boston, it's because Buck Showalter, his manager, had already read his bio, and he went to Chris Davis in like the 15th inning and said, you were a quarterback in high school, weren't you? And Chris Davis goes, yeah, I was. He goes, okay, you're going to pitch whatever it was, the 16th inning. And he ended up getting a win in that game. Chris Davis was enormous, Jeff. And I remember asking him, were you this big in high school? And he goes, well, I wasn't this big, but I was way bigger than our center was. That's how big Chris Davis was as the quarterback on his football team. Way bigger than the center. Okay, just a couple more, Jeff. So Billy Hamilton, former major league outfielder, still trying to make his way back, still playing winter ball. He scored 31 touchdowns his senior year in high school as a wide receiver. And he scored 27 points a game on the basketball team. And I said, Billy, and he played in the big leagues for years. I said, Billy, what's the hardest sport you ever played? And he just like looked at me and goes, oh, baseball, not even close. He said, I could always just let my body take over with its athleticism, and I could play football or basketball. But my great athleticism didn't always help me in baseball when someone was throwing 100 miles an hour. And again, all respect there is to football players, but Ben Zobrist, pretty darn good major league player for a long time. He told me, I dragged it out of him, that he didn't play football until his senior year. But the football coach finally went to him and said, like, you're a great baseball player. You're a great basketball player. Why don't you come out for football? So he played football his senior year and won the MVP of his team, having never played before. Again, this is what happens when you put a fantastic, skilled athlete like Ben Zobrist on a football field. Really, really good things can happen. So I'm really excited about watching the Super Bowl, Jeff, because I just love athleticism. We talked about Patrick Mahomes, Saquon Barkley. I just love it. It's great.
What do you have for in this state in baseball history?
Yeah, in this state in 2020, the Red Sox traded Mookie Betts to the Dodgers, and Mookie Betts is still a great, great player. And there are people in Boston still shaking their heads like, how could you have traded this guy? Jeff, remember when we interviewed Jerry Hairston Jr. about Mookie Betts on the podcast? What did he say about how great an athlete Mookie is?
Well, what didn't he say? He started off by saying Mookie showed up late to a charity golf tournament without swinging a club that day, came up and striped one down the middle, the best drive of anybody on his team, and he literally walked out of his car with his driver and did that. He also said that he could play, slot receiver today in the NFL. That's how good of an athlete he is. Dad, I feel like Boston Red Sox fans should probably call some Dallas Mavericks fans because the Luka Doncic trade and that trade, I think, have similar emotions on how bad a trade it is for one team. How can you give up Mookie Betts?
Yeah, well, a lot of Red Sox fans are still asking that. And I know people thought, well, Mookie's very slight of build. He's going to get hurt, and he hasn't gotten hurt yet. He's going to the Hall of Fame, and it's just amazing to me how he can be an infielder, move to the outfield, become, in my opinion, the best defensive right fielder in the game, move back to the infield. It's amazing. That's the athleticism that Jerry Hairston is talking about.
We have been talking so much about the Super Bowl, about football and baseball, and we are proud to have Phil Nevin as our guest today, Dad. And I'm really looking forward to this. He was a college football player, an incredible college baseball player, former Major League Baseball player, former Major League manager. He has done it all, Dad. He's a longtime friend of yours. We're really looking forward to having Phil Nevin on the podcast coming up next.
Welcome back to Is This a Great Game or What? And our guest today is our pal Phil Nevin, former really good Major League player, former Major League manager. He has a son, Tyler, who played in the Major Leagues the last few years. And Phil Nevin was a punter and a kicker at Cal State Fullerton. So Super Bowl week, he is our perfect guy to have on. Phil, thanks for joining us. This is my son, Jeff.
Nice to meet you, Jeff. I mean, I know we just did a little bit ago, but this is really cool for me I've been friends with your dad for a long time, and I know how proud he is of you, and we sit around and compare kid stories in our spring training dinners, and this is really neat to see you guys doing this, and it's an honor to be on with you guys.
I always felt bad for my dad who has Major League Baseball player friends because you might be talking about Tyler and saying, years ago, oh, he went 3 for 5 in his high school game with 2 doubles. And my dad would be like, my son was in Guys and Dolls over the weekend and he was singing a high A sharp. So the comparison might not be there, but Phil, I really appreciate it because you're right. And now recently becoming a father, and even though she's only 18 months old, that pride and that joy you have in your children it's unlike anything else I could do personally. So to have a dad that I get to work with and do this podcast with, it's amazing.
Phil, let's stay on football for a minute. Do you love watching football on TV? Are you really excited about the Super Bowl, or being a baseball player and everything else, it doesn't interest you anymore?
No, I do. I love football season. I'm a huge fan. I'm a Charger fan. Have been since I came down to San Diego. I did say when they left San Diego, I once Phillip Rivers left the Chargers, because I got to know Phillip a little bit, and living down here. Once Phillip left the Chargers, okay, I might have to switch allegiances at some time because I didn't like the way they left, as nobody does here down in San Diego. But my clubhouse attendant, when I was managing in Reno, his father was the running backs coordinator, I believe, for the Oregon Ducks. And when I went to the Yankees, he called me and said Justin Herbert was a huge Yankee fan, and if there was any way I could get something of Aaron Judge for him or anything like that. Well, I said, well, yeah. I'm kind of a Herbert fan. That'd be great. And a week later, I had a Oregon Ducks football helmet with Justin Herbert's signature on it. And then when he got to the Chargers, I got one as well. So I'm remaining a Charger fan, and I think it's ingrained now. But I'm certainly a big-time Justin Herbert fan. I love Jim Harbaugh. I love the hire. I've known Jim for a long time. He was he was a coach here at the University of San Diego is where he got to start before going to Stanford and the 49ers in Michigan. And I'm really happy he's around. My college roommate in football actually worked for Jim in many of his stops. Tim Drevno, he's now with Ohio State. But going back to answer your question, it's like a weekend thing for us here at our house with my boys. Tyler's obviously moved. He's moved away. Kyle still lives at home, but we got a few TVs set upstairs, and we call it our Sunday room, and we do the fantasy football and watch games, and you text back and forth with your friends. But yeah, we're glued on Sundays for sure.
So Phil, are you in the same fantasy football league as Aaron Boone? Because he brags about his team all the time.
We are not in the same league. We have been before. When I was with the Yankees, each team has all their different leagues together. But Booney and I are in contact every Sunday, most days to begin with, but certainly on Saturdays and Sundays when it's either college football or the NFL, we're going back and forth. And he refrains from talking about the Eagles, and I refrain from talking about the Chargers, and especially I don't think they've played each other in a while, but as you know, Aaron's a big Eagles fan, so it's a big week for him too.
Yeah. Have you seen him do, I know you have, his impersonation of a left offensive tackle in the NFL? Have you seen him do that? Is that the stupidest thing you've ever seen? Is that the funniest thing you've ever seen?
He's got a lot of them. He does the tackle. He does the quarterback. As you know, imitates everything, you included.
Right.
People don't know these things about Aaron, and I don't know if he likes these things being out there, but no, he's certainly very talented when it comes to those
yeah.
things.
Phil, he joined us in the middle of the season last year. We got him as a guest on this podcast. And, I have to give my dad so much credit. Before any interview, yours included, him and I have a long chat before to kind of roadmap, but also, to set up our boundaries, right? We were telling ourselves, this is the Yankee manager, right? They've got a great season ahead of them. We don't want to put him in a position where, you're right, puts him in an uncomfortable situation. All of a sudden, he's given us, every time I see Brad Ausmus, I switch his name backwards and say, Sub-Squad for 3.
Yeah. It's fun. We're about halfway through spring training last year, and Brad and I are very close friends as well, but it was probably 2-3 weeks into it, and I was talking to Brad, and I said, how's it going out there? Because they stayed together during spring training, and Brad's like, because they just gotten to know each other, really.
Right.
He goes, this guy just comes up with a phrase every day, and he just wears it out all day long. He's got his imitations. I wake up, and he's got all these sayings. He's yelling from downstairs, and people that don't know the real Aaron and his personality, it's so infectious to a lot of people. Wow. It's why he's so good at what he does in that clubhouse, and he knows the times to be serious and when not. But I will be honest with you, we could be in the heat of the moment in a game, and to break the ice or to just kind of cool the situation, he'll break out something like that, whether it's quiet to me or somebody that he's comfortable with. And then I know Aaron's engaged, always engaged. It's just the way his personality is, and what makes him great is a human and what he does in the dugout.
All right, Phil, on that podcast we're talking about, he did Moses Malone at the free throw line. And I am old enough to remember exactly what it was I was crying with laughter. Have you seen Moses Malone at the free throw line?
Oh, yeah, I've seen him do it. I'm shocked you got him to get up and do all those things. Don't ask me to do those things. I'm not much of an impersonator, but he's got some really good ones. He remembers when I was a kicker in high school, and he went to one game and probably saw me kick one field goal or anything, and he's probably, if we watch video or anything, but he'll imitate me when I was kicking. He does my batting stances. It's like, how do you remember these things? It just makes no sense.
So, Phil, talking about that time in kicking, I feel like now more than ever, we're seeing just average Joes and Janes are kicking on college game day to win $1 million and all of this stuff. For you as a former kicker, I don't want to say, are you like, happy finally people realize, but like, as a sports fan, kickers get a lot of heat, but until you actually have to step up and do that, is there a part of you that's like, I'm glad that normal people are giving this a shot to see just how hard it is?
Yeah, it's I do watch the game day on Saturdays, and I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of, unless you make a big kick, there's really no recognition for that. I mean, it's just part of what sports are, I suppose, in that situation. It's but obviously we know it's important. I mean, even the punter has become important. I've seen punters get drafted in the NFL, and how important it is field position wise. But the guy that scores the most points, I mean, it's kind of like I equate the one record in Major League Baseball that I feel is so underlooked. It's Ricky Henderson's run scored record. I mean, the name of our game is to score more runs than the other team. I mean, that's the objective, and he did it better than anybody in the history of the game. And in the NFL, you're trying to score more points than the other team, and usually at the end of the year, your highest point scorer on your team is your field goal kicker. And hey, I mean, is Tom Brady what he is without Adam Vinatieri making that field goal in the snow his first year? I mean, he misses that kick. We're not sure where Tom Brady is. Maybe Drew Bledsoe's the starting quarterback the next year instead of Tom Brady. So because they didn't win the AFC Championship.
That's a good point.
And now, Phil, you were a really good kicker, especially your freshman year at Cal State Fullerton, a couple of field goals over 50 yards. When's the last time you kicked a field goal?
I knew that question was coming. Yeah. So it was probably 4 or 5 Christmases ago, and we were watching a game, and a kicker missed an extra point. And I can say I never missed an extra point. So I never missed one in high school, and I never missed one in college. Now, that's not like a big brag, because I just never had one blocked or anything. It's really, I'm not going to say it's hard, but if you're a decent enough kicker, it's rough to miss one from 20 yards away and where the goalposts are. But anyhow, I made a comment about somebody missing an extra point or something like that. And the boys say, "Oh, you think you can still do it?" I'm like, "Absolutely. I can make an extra point right now." So Christmas morning, we wake up and we're opening presents. And sure enough, I got 2 NFL footballs. That was my Christmas gift. And we're going over to the high school to see if you can make this extra point. And my daughter, who at the time was a trainer, an athletic trainer, and studying to do that, she's like, "Dad, I don't know if this is a good idea. You better really stretch a lot." So we were running around, running routes and throwing. And I'm like, "All right, it's time to kick." I felt like I warmed up enough and hit a couple extra points, and we start moving back. And I'm like, "Geez, I wonder how far I can kick one still." And we got to 35. I remember that. And I hit it and I made it. And I'm like, I need to add a little extra to get to 40. So I'm just going to hit one more from here. And I added a little something into it. And you guys, I felt like my leg went through the upright. I felt something. I tore my groin. I tore my hip flexor. No joke. And we were leaving for Cabo San Lucas the next day for a golf trip, a family trip with the boys and I playing golf. And I was miserable for about 3 weeks because of the torn groin and the torn hip flexor. So it was not fun, but I did make the kick though.
So then you got to be one of your daughter's first clients, right? Rehabbing dad.
That was more just laying on the couch and icing, but yeah, it was painful. But that's the last time, and will be the last time I ever kick a ball.
All right, Phil, really stupid question, as if we haven't asked you enough of those. Okay, could a great NFL punter, Ray Guy, Reggie Roby, anyone over the years, stand even at third base at Fenway Park and punt a ball over the green monster into the net? It's roughly 210 feet, which makes it 70 yards, and you got to kick it really high. I don't know anything about punting. Could a punter punt it from third base over the green monster?
I think the guys today can, yeah. The way the technology, the ball, yeah. I think a punt, yes. I think that can happen. That wall's closer than you think. Those numbers they put out there is not quite accurate. I think that's under 300 feet, and like I turned around at third base and it's like it's right behind me. But I think a guy could punt. Now it amazes me over the years. I'll say when I was in college, we kicked off from the 40-yard line, and if you kicked I want to say half your balls into the end zone, it was really good. And now they're kicking off from the 35 and balls are going out of the end zone. I don't know if it's, as we've watched sports over the years and the evolution of just the human being, I would say that plays these things. Even the kickers and punters are bigger dudes, and I don't know if it has something to do with the way the ball's inflated or anything like that, but it seems to be going further and further every year. We're seeing, what did Carlson kick, a 65-yard field goal last year or something?
Yeah.
So, or Aubrey from Dallas. But
Yeah, I
yes,
had him on my fantasy team. That was big this year for me.
yeah, I do think that might be the only stadium you could get one over because it's so close. Yeah.
Right, agreed. Now, Phil, if the average dope like Jeffrey, who's 31 years old, played soccer until he was 10 and then quit, would he have any chance of kicking an extra point in an NFL game? Again,
No.
he's no chance, right? 0% chance.
Does it help if I tell you I'm left-footed, Phil? Does that help or no?
Might hurt you because the holder has to make an adjustment. But
I'll run right into his back.
And you're asking about in an actual game, like with the defense
Yes.
coming at you. Yeah,
Yes.
because it happens so fast. And,
Right.
You can put a ball on the tee or have someone hold it and you're looking at it, okay, I got to go. But you got to understand when an NFL kicker or college, high school, when the ball snaps, you are actually moving towards that space before the ball is on the ground. So you're actually looking at a little spot on the ground and to get that adjustment. Now, I mean, if you were to practice, if you kicked in a soccer ball and had a decent leg, I mean, it's not that far. But to just go out there and do it, naked, if you will, no, I don't think anybody can do that.
I totally agree. All right, Phil, back to the NFL for a minute. Help me here. I watch Patrick Mahomes play, and I am mesmerized. What I see when I watch him play, when he throws a ball sidearm, when he throws it left-handed, when he throws it behind his back, I see a great former baseball player and a great point guard playing quarterback in the NFL. To me, he personifies how important it is to play as many sports as you can growing up. Am I seeing the right thing with Patrick Mahomes?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think kids these days don't get an opportunity or just don't. They're so focused on one sport, especially when you're like in the warmer states, like California, Florida, Texas. You can play baseball year round. There's travel ball, and they start playing baseball, and that's all they do. I am a firm believer. Like when I go out and look at players right now, scout amateur players, I ask the question: does he play any other sports? And when I hear he's a basketball player or a football player, that intrigues me a little more because the athleticism to do any other sport, and they're all different. I think it translates into other sports as far as how you use your feet, how you use your hands, the mental part of it as well. I certainly believe that Patrick's baseball days, and I knew he was a shortstop, it certainly has an impact on what he does on the football field. And he's, as you said, it's incredible to watch what he does on the field. I love watching him play, except twice a year when they play the Chargers. It kills me, but no, it's pretty impressive. And I think anybody that's played sports and been around our games or anything like that, I, for one, have a great appreciation for greatness, for dominance, and more importantly, for sustained greatness. And what you're seeing with what happened with Tom Brady, we just mentioned him earlier, what Patrick Mahomes is doing now in the Kansas City Chiefs with Andy Reid, you just look at it, and it's so hard to win, but it's even harder to keep winning. And what they are doing there is so impressive. It's a fun team to watch. It's fun to see Andy, interact with his players, and it's just something I really enjoy looking at and watching and following and getting to know the inner workings of those things.
Phil, for you, you brought up kids growing up playing multiple sports, the importance of that. As a father, right, raising your kids and having a major league dad, how did you toe the line? And we've talked to guests about this before, but between being dad and being a major league baseball player, trying to help their kids grow up and become a great athlete, and letting the coaches coach or coaching yourself, how did you kind of balance all of that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was gone a lot. But we were fortunate enough, when I was managing through the minor leagues or my last couple of years playing, we could, they're plane flight away, and they were around as much as we possibly could. When they came to the field, they just loved being around the game. I think I think the thing that they took away, especially Tyler, because he remembers being in the dugout, even at the end of my career when I was with the Cubs, Dusty loved to have the kids in the dugout, as you remember, or just being in the dugout and the minor league teams that I managed through Double A and Triple A. He can still point out and remember like the guys that had so much talent and never made it, or the guys that didn't have as much talent and did make it, and why. Whether it was me talking about them or just him observing the game. But my boys are completely different. Kyle, he was in the playroom and eating candy and watching everything, and it wasn't as Tyler paid attention to everything, and he never missed an inning. He kept score of the games. He paid attention to the players and their personalities. He did imitations just like Aaron Boone does. He was very engaged to everything, and I think that's benefited him a lot. They're two It's great when my two boys are the best of friends, and I'm happy they're both successful in doing things in this game. But they're two really different personalities, and it's fun to watch those evolve as they get older. But they just grew up around the game and they liked it. I never pushed them into it. I help them out as much as I can. I did try to coach their travel ball team for a part of a summer when I first retired, and it was a disaster because the parents are just out of their minds. And all those travel ball memes you see or little skits you see on social media, it's right on point. Some of these coaches and parents that are living and dying, they think their kid's not going to make it to the big leagues if they strike out. It drove me crazy. So
Dad,
I would
there's this guy on social, and I think it's who Phil's talking about right now. This guy on social media who does an impression of a travel ball coach, and he always opens it up with, "Hey guys, in 4 days, we just got a bid to go to the Bahamas, so we leave in 48 hours, and you need $10,000, and then right after that, we're going to Cabo, and then we're going to Italy for a tournament in June. So take off work, quit your jobs, because this is your life now."
I remember Tyler was like 10 or 11, and you know, we cherished our time together in the winter, and it was a Thanksgiving, and we had a big family vacation planned, and it was this big tournament over Thanksgiving. They're 11 years old, and I remember telling, well, Tyler's not going to be there. We're going to Mexico or something, and the coach was just, "There's no way you can take him away from us. This is the biggest tournament," and I'm like,
It's
"And if
always
you
the
win
biggest
it, what
tournament.
happens?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
what do we get if we win it? Like, what are we missing here? It's like, I think he'll be fine.
yeah.
It just, that's the way it started, and I mean, they loved playing, of course, but our family time was just as important.
Well, God bless you on that, Phil. All right. Fast forward, though. Help me here. You took out the lineup card as the manager of the Angels, and Tyler brought out the lineup card as a player for the Orioles. Do I have that
Mhm.
right? And what was that like?
You do have it right, and the other thing that people don't know is that was the very first time I ever got to see my son play a major league game in person. When I was in the dugout and he was playing. So when he got called up, I did have in my contract with the Yankees, when if he were to ever get called up, uh, Brian Cashman told me I could leave and go see his first game. But I was really sick at the time. And he got called up as I was just getting out of the hospital, to be honest. And his mom went, a lot of family went, but I watched it from my couch in New York. And I never got to see him play live because he got either sent down before we came to Baltimore. He got traded, and then he was with the Tigers, and we missed him there. But the first the first time I ever saw him play live in a major league game, I was in the dugout. But yes, we took the lineup cards out. And the one thing I do remember about that, and we have a picture of Ted Barrett was the home plate umpire,
Right.
and his son at the time was coming up through the minor leagues as an umpire. He's since decided to change career paths, but I remember Ted saying, Man, this is. I hope I get to do this with my son someday. Like, just be on the same field with them. And it was. I just remember that it was an emotional time for all of us. And then he got to hit his first at bat, and then he wore me out. Actually, when he was with the A's, I always kid him because when he was with Oakland, my last year with the Angels, he had a big series. He probably had 5 or 6 hits and drove in some runs. And it was towards the end of the year, and I always tease him that he's the reason I got let go from the Angels because my own kid killed me. So.
Phil, when your major league career ended years ago, you're 54 years old now. When you look back at the game that you played and now you look at the game that we play today, what is the biggest difference between your time playing and the game we see today?
Well, I think the game has evolved. You can go through any era, and I know you're a historian of the game, and you understand that the game's changed quite a bit since, when you were watching games. What was that, like the 30s or 40s when you started watching them?
Phil, I'm 68. I'm not 98.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't get the
It
numbers
feels
right
like
there.
that. It feels like he was around for the dead ball era. I feel you, Phil.
But I think, and I would say this, the way the game has evolved, and I mentioned travel ball earlier and these showcases and things like that. I really feel like that has had such an impact on what the game has evolved into today. I mean, it's faster, the players are stronger, pitchers are throwing harder, guys are hitting the ball farther. The one thing that I think we notice is that, when you're playing you used to play in Little League and then you went and played football and baseball, but you were always in a team atmosphere and winning games and things like that. You played with your high school buddies all through high school. You went to college and you played with the same guys for 3 years. That's different now. These travel ball kids are playing on a different team every week. The emphasis isn't about winning. I think the game has changed from, I understand the analytical part of it and how we need to score more runs and things like that. But I think the emphasis on winning baseball when kids are brought up these days is a lot different. It really is. And it's becomes harder and harder to teach that and preach that when you're a manager, when you're a coach. We try as best we can through the minor leagues, but you see it when you get into the playoffs. You watch games in the playoffs, and the games are just played differently. I bring up Starling Marte last year in the playoffs, and I watched Starling since he was in Double-A with Altoona, and I was with the Erie Seawolves with the Detroit Tigers, and Starling could hit balls, 500 feet, and he was a pull guy, and you watched him throughout his career. And then you watched him in the playoffs, and how many base hits did he get to the right side to help his team score a run or move a guy over? The game is just played differently. I mean, there's so many instances I can point to, but that one stood out for me as watching. I watched every inning of the Mets games because Carlos Mendoza and I are so close, and just to see the style of baseball they played. But I just don't think that's taught enough at a younger age anymore. As like it used to be, a runner at second and nobody out. You get a kid in pro ball. I don't even understand. I don't know if he even has an idea or a thought to hit the ball the other way, or how important that one run is early in a game. And I think that's probably, to me, one of the biggest things that's changed in our game over the years. From when I started playing anyway. But it's also, I've said it a million times. It's our job as coaches, as managers, as leaders in this game. We adjust to the players. It's not the players adjusting to us. And I think the coaches and managers that do that the best are the ones that are the most successful in our game.
All right, Phil, let me ask you something. Buck Showalter called me the other night to say, I just heard Phil Nevin say something really interesting. He said that you said, like, the only thing in the game now that you can't quantify at all, meaning upstairs, nobody is second guessing you, is the job of the third base coach, which you have been many times in your career. Could you explain what you were saying? Because Buck thought it was right on target and it was fascinating.
Well, I mean, I can't remember who I was talking to about that, and I love Buck. I played for Buck, and I really enjoy our conversations about baseball. What I was referring to is, I was actually helping somebody that's just going to get started coaching third through the minor leagues, but and it was asked about it. But it's the one job that can never change in our game. There's no analytical involvement in it. There's no, you're a part of the baseball game, and that will never change. You make decisions on the fly. It's as close to being a player when you're a coach as any position in any sport. There's no other spot like it. You can be a hitting coach and send the guy into the batter's box. You're not in there with them. You can be a pitching coach. You can call an offensive play, and it's about the guys going out there and executing it. But you're making decisions throughout the game that impact the game, and they're on the fly, and it's part of your thought process at third base. And it's the reason why I loved it so much. It's as close as we all want to still play. Nobody wants to not be able to play the game anymore, but it's as close as you're ever going to get to being a player on the field in any position, in any sport, in any coaching spot.
That's such a good point. I never thought about it like that. It is by far the most involved coach. You brought up football there. If you call a sweep right, well, you don't know what the defense is going to call in that moment. You don't know how many guys they're bringing behind the line. So,
Right.
This call is you're assessing the ball, the player in the outfield, the player on the field. There's so many things that are going into the situation, the score in the game, all of that. That's fascinating. That's so true.
Well, and another thing is, and I think maybe what Buck might have been referring to is I was actually talking to a group of minor league coaches the other day, and this isn't a position, and I encourage them all to go out there and experience it. You need to go out there, because in going through the hiring process as a manager, there's things that you ask about coaches in the minor leagues. Can they throw batting practice? Can they hit a fungo? Have they ever coached one of the bases? You can't just, there's a lot of coaches these days, and there's nothing wrong with this. They study hitting, and they study the science of hitting, and they become a major league hitting coach right away. Pitching coaches are the same way. I think Matt Blake is one of the best in our game with the Yankees. And he was never a pitching coach at any level in the minor leagues until he became the Yankees pitching coach. Now, he worked with pitchers, and it wasn't like he never coached pitchers, but never in a dugout. You will never see a coach just for the first time in his life coach third base in the major leagues. You have to do it. You have to practice it. You have to come up through the system and in some way, shape, or form have been over there and experienced that. It's not something you can just pick up in a few weeks of spring training and go coach third in a major league game. It's a difficult job. We talked about being a kicker, and it's a thankless job. Nobody says, wow, he's a great third base. You don't hear that. You always hear like, well, geez, you got this guy thrown out or that guy thrown out. And,
Right.
sure, in the baseball world, we talk about the guys, Tim Flannery, Joe Amalfitano, Gene Lamont was great. I learned a lot from him. Ron Washington. These are guys that I had conversations with before I started doing it in the minor leagues, so I could get better.
Just tell me what it was like to manage Shohei Ohtani in the major leagues, and were you as dazzled as the rest of us watching him do stuff on a daily basis?
Absolutely. I really was. What was it like? It was awesome. It was somebody that, the best players to manage are the ones that you just never have to worry about. You know that they're going to be prepared, which I've never been around a player that's more prepared than Shohei Ohtani, that took care of his body the way he does. He would look ahead. We had the 11 o'clock marathon game in Boston 2 years ago, and it was a week and a half or two leading up to it. It's early in the season, and I noticed that it was Shohei's day to pitch. So I called him in and said, hey, we can adjust this, because his workload throughout a year, you do try to manage that and work through it and give him as much rest as you can without giving him a day off, if that makes sense. And I pointed on the calendar. I said, okay, this game's at 11 o'clock in the morning. We can push you back and have you pitch the first game in New York and give you that day. And he starts looking at it. He goes, nope, we play at 1 o'clock on Sunday. I can go to sleep by 7 o'clock. I can wake up at this time, and I'll be ready to pitch at 11 o'clock. And I looked at his interpreter. I said, he's just going to go to bed at 7 o'clock? And what happens? I don't know about you, but I can't just lay my head down at 7 and close my eyes and go to sleep. And yeah, he just puts his head down, he closes his eyes, and he's like a machine, and he just goes to sleep, and he gets his proper rest, and he wakes up at a certain time. He started preparing for that game probably a week and a half ahead of time. Just one of the scenarios where I say, and then not to mention what he does on the field. Everything he does in his life, from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed, and even those hours in between, is to be the greatest baseball player in the world. Obviously, it's working. I don't think we'll ever see another thing like it. We say those things over the years, but I really don't think we will see another player like this. He's so good. He's so talented, but there's a reason why he's the greatest, is because of the fact that what he puts into it, that people don't see behind the scenes. Not to mention he wants to win so bad. I was so happy for him last year when they won the World Series, and seeing the look on his face. That's all he wanted in this game. And I say that with all sincerity. He wants to win so bad. You saw him in the World Baseball Classic and his reactions when they won, and then you saw him in the World Series. It just brought a lot of joy to me, even though, it was hard for me because you know how much I love Aaron Boone, and I was rooting for the Yankees, and there was on both sides, because Dave Roberts is such a great friend of mine, but Dave had one, and I knew Shohei was going to get one at some point, and I really and Aaron's going to get one too, and I can't wait for that day as well. But it was really neat to see Shohei be in that position and have such an impact on them doing well, because that's all he wants in this game is to win and win championships.
Phil, you mentioned, seeing your son play a major league game in person. And if I have this right, he's signed to go play overseas in Japan. Are you planning a trip for 2025?
The position I've taken with the White Sox, and we've had these conversations, I'm going to be able to leave spring training a few days early, and I'm going to get to see his first few games in Japan.
Great.
So I'm really excited about that. The time change is a little off. So about right now when I'm going to bed, he's just getting out of their spring training has already started, and he's having a blast. And okay. I've managed a lot of players in the minor leagues that have gone over and played in Japan, and I can give you the list of them. And I knew after a few, like, this guy's going to be able to go over there and do well, and this guy's not. It's the people that go over, and the players that embrace the culture, that really love the game. Yes, all of them are going over because obviously the money and the opportunity, and that's part of it for him for sure. But he sent me a picture of his first team meal. The team kind of messed with him a little bit, and he was sitting at this table, and they're like, "All right, dinner's coming," and they brought out this. It had to be like a 50-pound yellowfin tuna, and they just threw it on the whole fish. They just threw it on his plate and go, "All right, we're gonna eat." And he's like, you can see his face, and then they have the chef come over and he's sending me pictures of his meals and the fields and talking about their practices every day. He's loving it. I'm excited for him and really can't wait to get over there. I got an opportunity to go over there a few times during my couple years in college, and then we took an all-star team, I believe in 2000, a major league team that played the Japanese, and it's a wonderful country. I love it. I love the food. I love the culture, and looking forward to getting over there, first and foremost to see my son, because when he left, and you guys both, Tim, you're old, your son's older. It doesn't matter how old they get. It was a hard goodbye, but you think about it, it was just like, okay, we're just leaving for spring training, but the fact that he's halfway around the world hits a little different. And but I'm really looking forward to seeing him because I know he's having such a great time. So.
Well, that's great. All right, Phil, last one from me. We'll let you go. Just tell me, where are you watching the Super Bowl? Who are you watching the Super Bowl with? What food are you going to have? What's the big plan for Super Bowl Sunday for Phil Nevin?
We will be upstairs, and we have a little theater room. My dad's coming over, and my son and my dad. I'm not a Super Bowl party guy. I want to hear every word the commentators say. I want to watch all the commercials. I want to be locked into the game. It's quiet time in the room. You can cheer for whatever team you're rooting for. I will refrain. That's for those 3.5 hours. Booney and I do not speak during those times now because the Eagles are in this game. So, and I know he'll. I don't know where he's going to be watching it, but he puts his phone away. He doesn't even want to talk to anybody. But I'll be just with my youngest son Kyle and my dad. We're just going to sit and watch the game upstairs and we don't let anybody else in there.
Phil, can't thank you enough for joining us to talk about baseball, football, your son, everything. Good luck with the White Sox. I'll see you in spring training. This has been a blast. We could have kept you for 2 hours, but we got to get you out of here.
I appreciate you. It's been an honor to be here with you guys, and I do have watched it several times. And I haven't seen the Booney one. I got to go through and watch that one. But I really, this is great what you guys are doing, and I'm happy for you too as well. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you to Phil Nevin for joining the podcast. I have to say, when he said he felt like he kicked his leg through the uprights on Christmas morning, oh my gosh.
So he was 50 years old. He hadn't kicked in a long time. He went out and kicked a 40-yard field goal, like tore up his hamstring and everything else. That was just hilarious. But I also agree with him, Jeff, that if you try to kick an extra point in a game, you would have zero chance. Look, I would have zero chance. And I think the average person would have very, very, very little chance of making an extra point in an NFL game. Again, that the fear involved, if there's a bad snap, you're going to get killed. And like Phil said, there is a timing mechanism involved. You can't just run up and kick it. You got to know how to do this. And just walking off the street and kicking an extra point, I'm not confident on any level that the average fan could do that. Not in an NFL game.
It sounds like a Kurkjian quandary. Out of 10 kicks, NFL, and I'm saying this is the old extra point, okay? This is not the new backed up extra point, right? This is the original extra point. 10 kicks with an offensive line and a defensive line. How many would the average fan make? You can chime in. Let us know in the comments of the episode. We would love to know from you. And obviously, it's Super Bowl week, Dad. My prediction, can I give you my prediction of how it's going to go down?
Well, Jeff, you know what I think about predictions, okay?
I know, but that's World Series, Dad. This isn't your sport.
Jeff, this is the beauty of sports. We have no idea what's going to happen, and that's why I love it. So, yes, I want to hear your prediction.
I'm going to say 28-24 Eagles.
Okay, I'm going to say the Chiefs are going to win 31-28. Patrick Mahomes is going to be the MVP. Saquon Barkley is going to put on a show, and the Chiefs are going to become the first team ever to win back-to-back-to-back Super Bowls, Jeff. And I am so old. I used to love the Kansas City Chiefs in the 60s. I could name you right now their entire offensive line, every player on their defensive team. They were really fun to watch, but not as fun as they are to watch right now.
Well, you heard it here. Split decision between the two Kurkjians. Who will win it? A big, big shout out again. Thank you, Phil Nevin, for joining us. And thank you for watching on YouTube or listening wherever you listen to Is This a Great Game or What? We're excited to let you know that, we're going every 2 weeks for the off season, but starting on March 18th, we will be back to our weekly episodes as the regular season begins to ramp up. Dad, it's always a joy. Great to see your face.
Good to see you, Jeff, and enjoy the Super Bowl.
I will, and thank you for being a part of our family.